Smithsonian telescope, maybe a 14 or 16 incher, our film was only 12 inches wide. You can get it. We will make a solar filter. One of these will go over your Dobsonian telescope, and you're going to be able to use it to look at the sun, and it doesn't matter just because it's not the full diameter. See, right there, not the full diameter, small hole, but it's big on this side. It doesn't matter. You will not see a difference when you take pictures with this. And if it really bothers you, you can take it apart, take a knife and cut that cardboard out and make it full size if you want to. That's yours. It's easy to cut. You know, it's razor blade and go on down the road. So, Tyler, you have an Exos 100 behind you. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir. I do have one behind me, and I have my DSLR right here with a 135 millimeter lens. And I was going to get it set up for tonight to shoot. And that's what the next show that I'm going to be doing. That's what we're going to be concentrating on is DSLR work. And, of course, the little IXOS 100 that I have behind me.
So is that a fixed focal length lens that you got?
Yes, sir. It's 135 at 2.0.
Okay. So it's an f2 lens. Ooh, you spent some money on that bad boy.
So
yeah, oh, you stole it, did you? Okay.
No.
So go ahead, Paul.
This is an f1. This lens is an f1.
8 probably.
1.5.
1.5.
1.5.
Okay, so here we go. So the reason to use DSLR is you already own it, right?
35 millimeter lens, and but it's auto. Or it's not auto. It's all manual.
Yeah.
It's called a cinema lens made by Rokinon. You can get them. I'll put it in the carousel. These are going to give you the crispest, clearest, flattest field of the lenses out there.
Well, go ahead and take it with you because I'm getting ready to put some stuff up here. You know,
I have a rubber
I advocate starting with what you have, right?
Yeah, most kit lenses can't, like the one you have there has a zoom lens.
Right. And the reason I ask is, why is that? Go ahead, Tyler. The reason for that is what?
Go ahead, Tyler. By the way, I'm going to keep talking.
Yeah, I did what you do, Paul.
Yeah. Most DSLRs, like Kent has there, that 5D has a kit lens. 24 to 105 is the normal, or it's, what is it, 15 to 75, give or take.
This is a 24 to 105, and watch what happens. So if
there's that could happen, but it's part of the game. It's a learning experience that you have to learn. I go with a manual because a prime fixed lens, I have a set field of view that I'm looking through. I don't have to worry about what you just saw on TV, the focuser or the focus sliding down, and then I have to refocus, then I have to reshoot, because if that happens and I go to sleep, I'm in trouble. Then I'll have to figure out which one.
If you have a kit zoom lens, don't let that stop you from doing this.
No.
Simply get some duct tape, not duct tape, too sticky, you'll get goo all over it. Gaffer's tape is what Paul, you know, if you want to buy some gaffer's tape, I don't know where you buy gaffer's tape locally, but I know you can go down to any big box hardware or retail store or hardware store and get blue painter's tape, and you can painter tape it down in position, and you might have to use a decent little amount of it, but you get it to where it won't change the zoom setting, because otherwise your pictures will look like they're going into Star Trek warp drive mode, and you won't be happy with that, although they might be artistically pretty. That's not what you're shooting for. So by going with a fixed focal F ratio lens, like a 135 millimeter lens, that's just what it is. That eliminates that problem. Once you focus, you should still tape down your focus ring just in case it gets bumped or turned, right? Okay.
Yes.
So Tyler, I have some filters here. I'm holding, which one is this? The Optilong L-Enhanced Deep Sky Filter. Let's talk about filters that we haven't talked about very much. We're going to use these filters on a telescope, right? Not on a camera. So while Tyler is talking, I'm going to set this up with a telescope. So go ahead and talk about the filters a minute, Tyler.
Well, Kent, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you can technically use them on DSLRs.
Yes, but you have to have the clip-in ones.
You can have the clip-in ones, or they there's a company called ZWO, which is a camera manufacturer, and they make dedicated DSLR adapters with a filter slider drawer built in them, or
But again,
thread on it.
yeah.
But then that's how you would do it. But with a telescope, you literally thread it on a 2-inch snoot, or a field flattener, or a focal reducer, whichever's got a 2-inch snoot, and then
Right.
you're okay. The L Enhance, the one I have is 2-inch, because that's what I mainly use, is all 2-inch. This one has 3 channels that allows light to pass through. That's H alpha, or hydrogen alpha, all the pretty reds. Hydrogen beta, which is a little bit more of the reds, I believe. Kent may have to correct me. And I believe it is O3, which is oxygen.
Hydrogen beta is a green. Hydrogen
It's
beta
green.
is in a green.
I thought
Right.
sulfur was green.
Okay, then it's going to be in the blue.
Okay.
The hydrogen beta replaces hydrogen beta either replaces the oxygen 3 or the sulfur 2, one or the other.
I think it does the sulfur too, because with the Enhance,
Okay.
there's no sulfur. It's all HA, H beta, and O3.
Okay, there you go.
So so you'll get a lot of the reds, some of the blues, depending on which target you shoot. I need to get pictures. I need to get some pictures. If
You
anybody's
send them to
familiar
me, I can probably get them in the show. Email them over.
Well, I could, but I'll have to do it for the next one. If you stay tuned for the next show, then that's what we'll have. There's a veil called the Witch's Nebula, or the Witch's Broom is what I call it. I can't remember what NGC object it is, but there is a lot of wispy blues in there. And the great thing,
Not all
Would say-
nebulas are created the same.
no, they are not. But there are
Right.
99%, I'm going to say 99% have hydrogen alpha.
Most nebulas have some hydrogen alpha in them. The blue
Yes.
is the stuff that becomes tenuous a lot of times, right?
Correct. And that's mainly, that would be a lot. The galaxies have a lot of the blue. Some NGC objects. There is quite a bit of stuff, but there's always going to be hydrogen alpha, O3, or the blue colors. Now, O3 is oxygen.
Triple ionized oxygen.
That's right.
It's
Triple ionized oxygen.
It's a technical term that you don't really need to know, other than understand that these are very narrow strips of light. Visual spectrum is here, and this is
Yes.
blue, and this is red. One of them's in the blue range, one
Yes.
of them's in the green range, and one of them's in the red range. And
Correct.
so,
And that's only letting that light come through.
like 7 or 12 nanometers. So so it's 7 nanometers, so 7/1000ths of a meter of light, wavelength of light. That's all the light that comes through. What this does is you can assign with a digital camera that's color camera, you're taking all 3 wavelengths at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're building up a picture, in your camera. But what it does is all the light pollution that you have, and look, 80% of the people in the United States live under light polluted skies where they can't see the
Correct.
Milky Way. This eliminates that light pollution and lets you take pictures of things that you could not either take pictures of or maybe even see, even if you live in downtown New York City or downtown Las Vegas, or the most light polluted places in the United States. You can still do digital astrophotography using narrowband filters. Okay, so the term sulfur 2 and oxygen 3 don't really matter to get started. As you go down this road, Tyler, you start learning this stuff just like you have, right?
You do. Now let's make sure everybody's aware. With this particular filter, it's mainly used for one-shot color cameras.
Mm-hmm.
That's mainly DSLRs. And hang on just a second.
So when Tyler says one-shot color, there are dedicated astrophotography cameras out there that shoot just in black and white, okay? So with those cameras, you have to use other filters. You'd have to use a hydrogen alpha, hydrogen beta filter, and a sulfur filter, or an oxygen 3 or a sulfur filter.
Yes.
So you can take 3 different pictures, and they're all black and white. So then you assign the hydrogen alpha red, you assign it blue, and you assign it green, and then you stack those pictures up and you make an RGB picture just
Correct.
like the pictures that come out of a full color camera.
So this is my one-shot color camera, and it has a little filter slider drawer built in it, and I have the Optilong, I believe this is the L Pro in it. So it literally sits in front of the sensor.
So this is my one-shot color camera. It's a Canon 5D, right?
Here's mine.
Yeah, same thing. You know, they're both cameras. They do the same thing. They capture data. So let me show you how.
There's a big difference.
Yes, there's a difference.
This one cools.
It has a refrigerator in it,
Correct.
effectively. It doesn't really have a refrigerator. It's electrically cooled. It has a Peltier circuit on it that pulls the heat out of the camera and dissipates it off into the air. The effect of that is
Thermal noise, basically. That's all.
thermal noise. But again, I'm trying to focus this show on just getting started, right?
So
You've got a DSLR.
Yep.
You got a DSLR. You can start. Don't worry about thermal noise. Don't worry about sensor bloom. Don't worry about anything else. We want you to just go out and take a picture and start down this journey of discovery of what's in the sky and what's possible. You know, you just have to start at some point. And so, Tyler, you show them how to put the filters in yours. I'm going to show them how to put the filter in mine. So,
Well, I got a 2-inch little thing here, so I'll just use this as a demonstration.
I was going to do it with mine.
Okay, that'll work too.
So first off, we got to attach the camera to the telescope somehow, and we do
How
that.
do you do that?
That's called a T-ring. This is my camera has a bayonet mount on the back that lets the lens hook onto it, right? That's
Yes.
what this is right here. So I'm just going to line up the red dots, and you can find this over in the carousel. This is for the Canon. We are sold out, sadly, for the Nikons. We don't carry other brands. There it goes, and just snap it in there, just like that. Now this is, I call it a snoot. Just like an eyepiece has a barrel that goes down in the telescope, this is a barrel that's going to go into the telescope, and this has what's called T2 thread. This is a T-ring, this is T2 thread, and this is simply going to screw in here just like that. And now, just like the bayonet mount goes onto a camera lens, the bayonet mount goes onto this, and we can simply, I'm just going to turn this sideways so you can see it.
Hey, Kent, can I interject just for a second?
Yeah, 1 second. Time's up.
That's why I like you.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So there is some basic math that people need to understand with T2 rings. One we sell or have on the carousel is M42. You need to know what size you're getting, and where you get M42 is the threads on the other side of that little snoot. So you have to be aware of what size you need, and it all depends on what T-ring you get, because they make two types. They make M42 and M48. Now, if you have a full APS-C to full frame, what Kent has, it's recommended that you do M48 because you want to use that whole sensor. Now, the reason why you want to use that whole sensor is so you can get as much light as you can in without vignetting. You can get all the stars in the field. Who cares if you got coma or elongated stars? We'll talk about the what is it, Kent, the 500-second rule or the 50-second rule?
Rule of 500, but yeah.
The rule of 500. We'll go over that here in a second just for the basic beginners, because that's what helped me get me started, was the basic rule of 500.
But that rule of 500 disappears when we go with a go-to mount.
That is true, but again, we're talking about beginners. Some
Right.
beginners may not have a go-to mount. We're hoping
But
that this
we want
urges you to get one.
Right. The
Really
quality
does.
of your photos goes up real fast.
Really, really fast.
Really fast.
Really. But just make sure that you get either M42 and M48. You get the same T-ring and the extension, or T2 extension tube. So you can have full light path or full ability to use your sensor and not have to worry about vignetting as much.
So here we go. I'm going to stick the camera on here, and it's going to go in here. So the telescope generally comes with a diagonal, and if you're going to do this visually, you put the diagonal on, you put an eyepiece here, you look down in it, boom, you're doing visual. Okay, the camera replaces that. It's going to go on right here, and we're going to tighten it down. But where do you put the filters at? Well, you get your filter, and you try not to talk because you don't want to get spittle on the filter, okay? And masks, you know, we all have masks now. You know, if you're going to be talking with the filter open, just wear a mask to keep your spittle from getting on your optical surfaces. So I'm going to take this out and not talk. Tyler, tell them what I'm doing as I'm doing this, please.
It'd be nice to, but all I see is my ugly mug. That's all I see is my face. There we go. So Kent's there are threads that are on these filters. Every filter has the same generic M48 by 0.75 pitch thread count. Now, that's usually what all filter manufacturers use. Now, Kent threaded it on that little 2-inch snoot, and now he's just going to insert it where the diagonal would go. Now, we're not worried about backspacing. Not worried about that at all, because generally, most camera manufacturers, DSLR manufacturers, calculate back 55 millimeters from the sensor.
The sensor is generally about 43, but the ring and everything add the math to get you to 55 millimeters. But
Correct.
We don't have a field flattener in here, so it doesn't matter. We're just going straight on, Tyler. So
straight on.
Yep. So we're ready to take pictures now. Now, I will say this. I just noticed I only have one extension tube on here. To make this work, I need to have a second one of these extension tubes, the ED80, which is what this telescope is, over in the carousel right now. The ED80 comes with 2 extension tubes that you simply screw on there, and it makes the focal length longer so you get your sensor where the telescope is going to focus. And then we simply use the live focus function and the magnifier and focus on the object that's trying to focus on, right? So talk about that a little bit, Tyler.
What was it again? I missed it.
Oh, talk about how to focus.
So focusing is when Kent was saying he needed another extension tube to get more back focus to get into focus. So you
I gave him one.
You know,
I'm getting ready.
Gave
I'm
him
getting ready to put it
4,
on here.
technically.
They could watch me put it on while you're talking.
So how to get in focus. I highly recommend doing this during the day. Why you want to do it during the daytime, Kent? Because it makes everything so much easier so you don't struggle in the middle of the night while you're trying to find a star. Or if you want to try to struggle during the night, just keep it on Polaris. That way, because that star never technically moves. Well, it does, but we don't really see it. It's very, very tight circle.
Now,
Go ahead.
David Samard, he wants to know, how much extension do I need for the 102?
All Explorer Scientific telescopes come with 2 extension tubes. It depends on if he's introducing what is called a focal reducer, which we're not going to talk about that right now. But usually for any kind of cameras, DSLR work, you want to use 2. There are some instances that you have to possibly buy 2 more or 1 more extension tubes. That's where the experiment of daytime shooting with your telescope comes into play.
And where that comes in, and we've lost you, Tyler. Sound.
No, he's not talking.
Okay. So where it comes in is the dedicated astro cameras. You said on DSLRs, their sensors are usually like 43 or 44 millimeters into the camera. On dedicated astro cameras, they can be as short as 6 millimeters. So
Correct.
You're now 25 or 30 millimeters too far forward, the sensor. So you've got to get more spacing to get farther back to get the sensor plane where the focal plane is, right? So I've now put on the second extension tube. We can get this in focus now. And so when you start talking about focus in the daytime, you're talking about focusing on something a long ways away, correct?
It doesn't have to be extremely far, but it's got to at least be, I don't know, 2 or 3 blocks or
a mile.
A mile, half mile.
Okay, so Tyler, if they focus during the day, can they then go out at night and it's going to be in focus on, we'll say, M42 or the moon?
Close. What I would recommend doing, since everybody in the northern hemisphere has to polar align through Falieres, is once you get it focused on an object that's at a distant mile during the daytime, and you throw it at the North Star or the NCP, you should see it in your field of view. And that's where you're going to have to critique your focus or find focus to make sure that you are in proper focus.
Yeah. So focus is, you know, very precise. You have to tweak it and wait and tweak it and wait and spend some time working on mastering your focus.
Yes.
None of this is complicated. It just steps you have to learn. And look, the first picture you take, whether it's out of focus or whatever, the first picture you take, you're going to be excited and happy with it. Don't compare your work to somebody who's been doing astrophotography for 25 years. Right?
And here's a bonus, Kent.
Oh, we have a bonus?
Most DSLRs nowadays have what is called a live view on the back
Right.
of your screen.
Right.
So that and most of those can zoom in pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
The one I have can go up to 30 times on zoom. So if I want to get real precise, I can zoom in on that star, get it real dialed in, and just put some gaffer's tape on the focus, and I leave it alone.
And there's also some ways to, let me tighten this down just a little bit more. There's also ways, Tyler, to get your information out of your camera and look at it on a computer screen and focus it that way. There's a little bit of a delay, but you can take your time and go slow, and you can focus that way as well, right?
There are definitely ways.
All right, so I have now attached my Canon camera to an ED80, and ED80s are where I strongly suggest people start doing astrophotography. People will, I want a bigger telescope. I want to capture more light, and I want to get more focal length. And I want to get really, really faint, big, little stuff. And that's okay.
How'd that go, Kent?
I could do it almost exactly the same way again because I've done it before. We understand that. I understand that. You think a bigger telescope is going to be better, but bigger telescopes magnify what you're trying to take pictures of. But Tyler, they also magnify your problems, right?
1,000% agree.
So we want you to start where you can find success. And with a go-to mount and your DSLR and a camera lens, you can find success really early and really easily, right? And the beauty of DSLR is you can look at the pictures almost immediately and go, ooh, that's not in focus. And you can learn and experiment, right?
Now,
and
here's another good tip, Kent. If they decide to go with an ED80, which again, I completely agree with you, and I would highly recommend starting out with that telescope. In my opinion, I'm not a photographer. I don't do wildlife photography. I don't know anything much about camera lenses. So Paul's probably going to correct me when I say this because he's going to cringe, but it's going to be hilarious when he does. In my opinion, that ED glass on that telescope is a lot better than a camera. Now, again, that's my opinion. My opinion alone.
You just got some bad glass.
Inexpensive camera lenses are inexpensive camera lenses.
Correct.
Inexpensive telescopes. And inexpensive telescopes are inexpensive telescopes, right?
So I mean, you're going to pay for what you get.
Yep.
Now, if there's definitely nothing wrong with. I know we don't have it on, but we had it on yesterday's show or the day before. The first lights. If you have a first light, there's definitely nothing wrong with those getting started. That definitely gets your foot in the door, and that's what also we want to do.
And that's what you have, you contact us go to Explore Scientific store on Amazon and contact the seller, ask us questions, tell us what you have. We will help you through the process to get you started because what you have is good enough to get started, right?
Yes,
Tyler, we were using a Galileo scope and a solar filter this morning looking at the sun. Fantastic view of the sun through a telescope with a 2-inch diameter objective lens. And it was fantastic
you could see
looking.
the whole thing. Full disc.
we are going to try probably next week to do some astrophotography, solar astrophotography with a Galileo scope, a camera, and an Exos 100. We just have to figure out how to hook the Galileo scope up to a camera so we can do that. But we're going to figure it out, by golly.
Hey, can't guess what? It's got a 1/4-20 screw. That dovetail you put on your DSLR
Oh, I know.
is a 1/4-20.
So,
I know.
Kent and Tyler, while I've got you here as a captive audience that has to finally listen to me for once, I'm just saying.
Oh boy, I can turn you off. I can mute you.
Here we go.
Since you guys control the inventory in the showroom, I want to request the use of that particular setup right there
What setup?
for this weekend.
Which
I
setup?
mean the ED80.
The
and
one
the
that's
Exos
sitting
100?
right there.
Oh,
the showroom?
He's talking about.
That one. On
He's
camera.
wanting to borrow the one.
Oh,
that's
this one
inside
here?
you.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
We won't send you out with this
Oh, come
ED80.
on.
I'll send you out with the TED80 that I have. The one with the cracked lens that we can't sell that's a great telescope.
No, I
It's-
want
You won't
that.
even notice it.
Here's the cool part, and Tyler will back me up.
I
It
wanna
has a
use
crack
that
in one of
so
the
I
elements.
can take some photographs and we can show you exactly what's
That's-
taken from this particular telescope.
You can't
They're
tell the
both
difference.
same.
The same. It's the
You
same.
earlier you said you didn't want to tell anybody a lie. Now you're not going to
It's-
let me
we're
use
gonna
it
tell-
and can
we
claim that
took
it's the
them
same
with
telescope.
We took them with an ED80. Here's the cool part about this ED80. It has about a
Tyler
quarter-inch
was
crack.
there in that room when you said that, so I have proof.
It has a quarter-inch crack in one of the lenses that you can barely see, one of the lens elements.
It's chipped.
But the interferogram is tremendous, and it's a telescope that people would send back because it has a chip, a scratch in or a chip that you can't see. It never affects anything, but you can see it visually. So we're not going to sell it. So I have the beauty of being able. We just use it. It's a great telescope. Now then, Tyler, you did make a
Isn't
statement.
that
You
one
said
got better glass, though?
you,
No, it's the same glass.
Same
as
glass.
What Kent's got.
Okay.
Same glass. So Tyler, you said every Explore Scientific telescope. I want to clarify that. I just now thought about this. If you have a DAR, a DAR, or an AR 102, 127, or 152, or a MacCass telescope, or the old TED 80s and the carbon fiber 80s, they may or may not take two extension tubes. When Tyler says all the Explore Scientific telescopes, he means all the currently produced
Production.
and in production and live sale through a new dealer or Explore Scientific, Essential Series, or an FCD 100 telescope, all come with two correct extension tubes, and we have more if you need more to gain more distance. So I just not thought about that and figured we better clarify that just a wee bit.
That's a good
So
clarification.
I haven't. Okay, TEC for the win. Hello, Kent and Tyler from Bill Beckett. JR, 400, 500, 600 rules vary as technology continues to improve for DSLR cameras. I don't know what that was. Attached to a tripod. Okay, the rule of 500 is a
please
rule
go
that was
over that.
established back in the old film days. And it was, you take the focal length of your lens
Tyler,
and,
come back.
and divide it into 500, and that tells you how many seconds you can go without having star trailing, okay? So you can point at the sky on a tripod that doesn't move, and that tells you how many seconds you can set your shutter to be open and take a picture and not get star trailing. So the rule of 500, Tyler, if you're doing your 135 millimeter lens, you can take an exposure for effectively 3 seconds and not get star trailing, right?
Yep.
Because 135 will go into 500 3 times,
Correct.
right? Okay. If you have a 50 millimeter lens,
If you can open that.
50.
You can get.
go ahead, Tyler, math.
Hang on. Let me give him my trusty calculator. It never
He's
fails me.
when he says he's getting his calculator out, he means taking his shoes off.
It's 10 seconds.
10 seconds, okay? The rule of 500. So there we go. Clarification from Bill Beckett. I wanted to see the image of sun with the Galileo scope. We didn't get one. We were messing around this
Tried.
morning. We're going to get it one next week, Mr. Beckett, and we will be using it on one of these broadcasts.
We actually might do it live, Kent.
We could do it live if we can figure out a way to get a camera hooked up to the Galileoscope. Gary Palmer did it. We need to talk to Gary how he hooked it up. He hooked up a dedicated astro
he did
cam.
the moon, though.
He did the moon, but we can do it. It'll work.
No, yeah, I agree. I can reach out to him later and figure out how he did it.
We can do this. So anyway, it was really a very pleasing image. The difficult part with the Galileoscope is it's a slide focus.
Yes.
And getting it precise. Now it stays, but we're gonna make it. It'll be interesting to see how this works. But yeah, a Galileoscope had a really nice view, and we were hand holding it too. We were hand holding it, propped up on the hood of a pickup truck, and so it was steadied. It was still low in the sky. It was what 8 o'clock this morning. So the sun had been up for less than an hour.
And the beauty part about it is, with that little bitty telescope, Kent, and that sun-safe filter, you could see the sunspots.
Oh yeah, beautiful big sunspots. It was a very large image. I mean, it was almost a full-frame image, right? So anyway.
So we've got a question from Connor Bradley. Is it possible to image an achromat?
He wants to know if he can get rid of an
chromatic aberrations.
Yeah. So he's got a doublet, and he's wanting to get rid of chromatic aberration, Kent. Now,
there are some processing techniques.
There are some processing techniques, and there is a specific camera that completely negates it. And it is a monochrome camera.
Okay, there's the question. What solutions to get rid of? You can also get, it's a deep violet, if I remember correctly, filter. And if you use a violet filter, it will highly reduce the chromatic aberration. You're going to have to convert it to a black and white image.
Grayscale.
A grayscale image, right? You're going to convert it to grayscale, but a violet, it's a violet.
A violent?
Violet.
No, violet.
A violent?
Tyler, Google that. You're sitting there at the computer. Google violet filter. It's like 86A or something like that.
There's also another question, Kent, that just popped up. The gentleman, I think his name was Chris. Can you view the running chicken nebula with that? Now, unfortunately, not really unfortunately, but if you put a visual filter on it, I believe not sure the running chicken nebula. I think that's a southern hemisphere target. I think. If you put on a visual filter like hydrogen beta, you can start seeing all the wispies and some of the contrast in that nebulae. And it also depends on what Bortle scale you live in, what the seeing conditions are. But let me Google real quick this filter that Kent wants, and then I will look up the running chicken nebula.
So while you're doing that real quick, if you're watching this, we got a pretty good sized crowd. Go ahead, if you haven't clicked that follow button, we would love for you to click the follow button. It allows you to be notified every day when we go live. It also bumps up our show in the algorithm here on Amazon Live, and more people get to see it. And we would love to give you a shout out. I see Rosie said hello, and Rosie gave us a follow yesterday. We appreciate that, and she's back with us today. Thank you for joining the family, because we view everybody that comes back as part of our Explore Scientific family, and we value you immensely. So, Tyler, did you come up with?
There's a couple filters that a specific company makes. One of those filters is a Fringe Killer.
Okay. We got to be careful here, because we can't really talk about stuff that we're not selling on Amazon, so we got to be careful.
Yeah,
well, if it's on Amazon somewhere, you can talk about it. I just have to add it in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are specific filters that get rid of the color fringing. There are people that make them, and you're good. That's one way of doing it, or a UVIR filter.
Noah's looking it up. Noah Menard, whom I've nicknamed Amazon Menard. He's looking it up to see if it's sold on Amazon. If it is, he will pop it up
It starts with the letter B, Kent.
What is it?
It starts with the letter B, is the manufacturer that makes it. I'll text the Amazon guy and let him know.
Yeah, text him and he'll look it up. Okay, we'll see if we can find it and give you a link, everybody. So it's a color of purple that kills that fringing.
Yes.
And sharp focus will eliminate it, as well as
Shark focus?
yeah, very, very sharp. The sharks have shark teeth.
Yes.
Yes.
So
And the other thing is really, really sharp focus and shorter exposures can also help with fringing as well. What you got? Oh, there you go. I think we're working on getting it right now. There we go. It'll show up in the carousel here in a minute. We will let you know when it goes. Oh, and I just looked up. If you look over in the carousel, you can see that we're selling the shirt I'm wearing right now. This is a Habit brand shirt. I really like these shirts. They're loose. They're comfortable. You can move around in them. They have a vented back. Have a place to hang your eyeglasses. Because we were out this morning, we were out there looking through, and I never use my glasses and look at the telescope. And so instead of having to hold them or put them on the back of my head, I simply went boom, and now I know where my glasses are. When I'm at a star party, same thing. I don't have to lay them down and worry about somebody knocking them off the tripod or the table,
like that's available
and then setting on. Yep.
The deal you're talking about, Tyler?
Yeah. So anyway, but I think we answered the question.
Doesn't look like it's available on Amazon.
All right. To answer the other question about the running chicken nebula, unfortunately, I was correct. That is a southern hemisphere target.
Yeah, I was pretty sure you were right.
But that specific target can be, I don't want to say it can be used for visual. I mean, I don't see why it can't be, because it is enriched with hydrogen alpha.
Where is it, Tyler? What constellation is it in?
Centaurus.
Centaurus. So we would be able...
I can't see it from my backyard. I can't.
It's very low. I think it may be for us below the horizon.
It is.
Look in CDC real quick. Do you have CDC?
I don't have CDC.
Look in your planetarium program. See where it is. I think Centaurus is just below. We're at 36 degrees north. So
it's at negative 43 degrees right now.
Yeah, we won't be able to see it.
Yeah.
No.
Even I know that, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
Of course you did. We forgot. Yeah. We're the expert.
We can see pretty far south, but we can't see that far south.
Superman.
So,
but I mean, like I said, if you have Kent, you may have to back me up because I'm not a visual guy. Hydrogen beta would be great, in my opinion, because it is a big target. Again, it also depends on your Bortle scale.
You've got to have dark skies.
If you got dark skies, you will be able to see no moon, you will be able to see the running chicken nebula with the ED80, no problem. Now, will you be able to see the whole thing? I'd have to set up a calculation and a formula to see what the field of view would be, and depending on what eyepiece that you use, because eyepieces change. Go ahead.
Yeah, but even then, depending on what, hey Tyler, there's somebody looking in the window back behind you.
Hate it for them.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, it all depends on like M42.
I thought you got rid of her.
In the M42, the Orion Nebula, you can't see all of it, even with the best filters and the perfect skies. And that's what people have to understand. I want to make sure they understand.
True.
Visually, you can't see things, but the camera can see them, one, because it captures light that your eye can't, and two, your eye is running about 1/30 of a second, okay? So you can't see, your eye doesn't build up data, your mind doesn't build up data. You can take longer exposures of a few seconds up to a few minutes with a go-to mount that tracks well, and those longer minutes build up data, and then you can take each one of those pictures and stack them up on top of each other and have a 45-minute picture that you can see things in the picture that your eyeball cannot see. And so things like the M42 visually is beautiful red and all sorts of colors. You can't see that with your eye. Another example is M31.
You did with a 20-inch stop, though.
With a big enough telescope you can, but you still have to have dark skies. If you have light-polluted skies, you still can't see it.
No.
So
there's another question also.
Go ahead. All right. I've also got an 8-inch diode in Bortle scale 7. Will I see the Veil Nebula and Rosette visually? No. Because
No.
the surface brightness of those nebula
They're very faint.
is less than the brightness of your sky glow. Okay.
The problem
So
is on the
it's
Veil
invisible.
Nebula. The one of the things on the Veil Nebula is there's that big bright star.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing, it even blows out a camera if you're not careful.
Right.
And that's the thing that you got to be cautious of when you're doing astrophotography. And here's another question for you, Ken. So guys, on an IXOS 100 polar alignment, I'm a new owner, so he has the mount. How hard is it to do on the polar alignment? So
Okay.
is he?
Go ahead.
Is it crucial to do a perfect polar alignment when running a guide camera, or can I just eyeball it? That's one question.
Okay. The answer is there's in amateur astronomy, it's like fishing. There's no yes or no answer, right? The answer is the closer you are to a good polar alignment, the less work your guide camera is going to have to do, right? And the less aggressive your guide camera has to be, the smoother your tracking's going to be, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to be particularly close. In fact, there are some people who purposely don't get a perfect polar alignment so that they do it in a very specific way, and I'm not going to go into this, but they do it a very specific way so they know that their drive is always being a little bit aggressive in right ascension or declination. They rig it so that they know which way it's always driving and not trying to go back and forth, because if it gets past where it wants to be, now it's got to stop moving or it has to go the other direction. You always want it driving your telescope, okay? And that's why I always say you want your telescope to be a little bit counterweight heavy, and you want it to be a little bit camera heavy all the time, so that that go-to system, and in this case a guide camera, is working to drive it in the same direction all the time in a really smooth fashion. So, we have a video out there how to polar align with a compass and a straight angle like a broomstick that we showed at the top of the show. Learning how to do that is a good way to do it in the daytime. And here's how I do it. I have a green rifle sight that I ordered off of Amazon. We used to have it in the carousel. I don't think we've had it recently, but it's like $25, okay? And that green laser, I simply remove the polar tunnel plug and turn, let me loosen this a little bit because I tightened it up.
Clutch, please.
Open the clutch a little bit. And now I've opened a port through the polar axis, right? And I simply shine my laser up through it, and I can see exactly where it's pointed. And then when I get down, and I literally did that, have done this at a star party, was it last weekend? 2 weekends ago now? Anyway, did a star party at Pea Ridge National Military Park, a National Park Service site, where I volunteer a little bit, and had the person stand next to me and put the pointer, and I use it as a green pointer, right? Hand hold it. I don't have it on a rifle, but it is a rifle scope. I just hand hold it close to the, and I look through there, and yep, I can see that laser pointing on Polaris, and then I know I've got Polaris, and I know it's in the field of view. I'm really darn close, and off I go, okay? So that's how I do that. That was a really good question. Rosie says, I have a Celestron Astromaster LT76 telescope. Tyler, it's an Astromaster LT76 Celestron.
It's a Newtonian, I believe.
Is it? I didn't know if it was a tabletop or a small tabletop Newtonian.
Hang on, let me turn you up a bit. And what I can do, it was a
LT76. Noah's looking up. Astromaster LT76.
That's an Alt-Az telescope from Celestron.
Open it up, Noah, so I can see it.
It's a Newtonian.
It's a Newtonian telescope. Okay, so Rosie, it's going to be a significant challenge to use that telescope to do astrophotography with a standard digital camera
Yes.
because it's not designed for it. Okay, there's some
Not that it
technical
can't be
reasons why
done.
not. The biggest one is you won't be able to get it in focus probably. So you will be able to do something called afocal, which is where you take your smartphone, right, and get it on the object and look in the telescope, get it pointed at the moon, we'll say, and go, okay, yep, it's there. Take your smartphone, hold it up to it, and take pictures afocally. Now, I've done that before to great success and sometimes to no success at all. Sometimes, I mean, it's just as easy as a can of corn, which is a baseball term, or it's like pulling teeth out of a rented mule. It's just not going to be fun, right? Sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's easy. But you just got to go do it. And Noah, thank you for that chuckle. I appreciate it. I'll give you $1 later. Okay.
Dad joke.
I made that one up on the fly, but it's pretty darn good, isn't it? All right. So anyway, So Rosie, look, you've got a great telescope, and I hope you're going out and using it every night that it's clear. Whether you're looking at the moon, the Terminator, looking at the shadows on the moon, going out and looking at galaxies. I don't know where you live. If you under decently dark skies, there's some galaxies that you can find. You just have to start doing it. The more you practice, the better off you're going to be, right?
So I do have something to tell Rosie about that telescope. I'm wanting to set her expectations up. So visually, as you know, Kent, with Newtonians, what is the main thing that people are unaware of that particular telescope does? When I'm doing terrestrial viewing, that does a certain thing.
It flips, folds, and angles what you're looking at. So if you're using it for terrestrial viewing, as in trying to look at the pretty deer walking across the field across from your house, they're going to be at probably a 30-degree angle walking uphill or downhill, and they're going to be right side up. No, they're going to be upside down and walking the correction. They're going to be upside down at a funky angle, walking in a weird direction. And that can't be fixed. It can be fixed, but it's not worth doing because it just doesn't work really well. So
there's nothing
Newtonian telescopes are not made for terrestrial photography. Additionally, that central obstruction where the secondary mirror is that reflects the light up into your eye, the human eye during the daytime, the pupil gets small, and the pupil can't see around that. So suddenly, that obstruction that at nighttime you don't see because your pupil gets big, in the daytime your pupil gets small, and now your eye can see that central obstruction. That's going to cause you some problems as well, trying to use a Newtonian in the daytime to take pictures. At night, when you look at something in the daytime, your mind knows when that house is not square because it's a point of reference. The horizon is a point of reference we all use. Uphill, downhill, our mind knows all those things. When something is upside down at a crazy angle, your mind screams because it knows the horizon's not right, and it's discombobulating to the brain, okay? So, when you look at the moon or Saturn or Jupiter, your mind does not care whether it's upside down or backwards or flipped or inverted or reversed or anything else. Your mind goes, there's no horizon lines here. This must be right. And your mind doesn't freak out. Your mind is combobulated. Yeah, combobulated, because discombobulated is the opposite of combobulated. That's right. So anyway, your mind accepts it. I hate to be the bearer of
bad news, but I have another show that I have to get ready for.
Yep. Okay.
And it's after 3, so you've done an hour.
Rosie's asked us a question. I want to weigh in. What's the best telescope I can get? I need one suit. Rosie, that's like asking which car is the best one to buy. It depends on many factors. 1, what do you want to do? 2,
budget.
What's your budget? 3, what's your budget? And 4,
what's your budget?
What's your budget?
How much? Right? Well, and how much focal length do you need?
Well, that's what you want to do. Okay,
that was question number 1.
And Rosie laughs. Funny. LOL. And Rosie, we're not being smart, Alex. This is a true answer.
It
okay.
really is
So-
it's a customizable thing. I mean,
So look,
you don't just go out and buy one and say, this is what I want. I'm going to use this. You have to figure out what you'd like to do with it.
a telescope is a tool, right? Just like there's different kind of hammers. There's ball-peen hammers, there's tack hammers, there's brad hammers, there's roofing hammers, there's framing hammers, there's sledgehammers, there's pile drivers, right? They're all kinds of hammers.
This isn't wrestling.
And, well, I was talking about pile drivers where you drive piles with a big thing.
He's talking about actual tools, Paul.
The actual tool, not a. And,
Oh, I thought he was talking about
and
you,
professional
Tyler.
wrestlers are not tools. They're athletes. I don't want them to come try and rip my head off. They're not tools. Paul called you tools. I did not.
I called you a tool. That's right.
So you want to, decide if you want to be. Are you going to be a roofer or are you going to need a tack hammer? And it's a discussion to have, and it's a question that most people don't know the answer to. And this is where a local astronomical society or amateur astronomy club comes in. Rosie, I don't know where you live, but
Or she can contact support on here on Amazon, and
Yeah,
we
if
can
you
gladly
wanna
guide her through it.
go to the Explore Scientific store. You're on Amazon. Contact seller. Amazon Menard over there will hook you up with one of our customer service people, and we can visit about the things you've looked at and the things you like and don't like, and try and point you in a direction that fits within your budget.
It applies to eyepieces too. I mean,
Sure.
If you need a 82 degree or a 52 degree or a 100 degree, it depends on what you're looking at and what you're looking for. Even the eyepieces can be subjective as to what you're doing.
Right.
And remember, always start with the largest number to find your object, and then go down until your seeing is too bad
Very
to
good,
be able
Paul.
to look through your telescope. And once it's too bad, back up a piece, a number or two, so you can see.
So because magnification is a division function, not a multiplication, okay?
And here comes the
So-
math.
Yeah, math warning, Tyler.
Math
Take
warning.
your shoes off here, Tyler, so you
I need
can
a
calculate.
siren sound now.
So you can be a double-aught spy here. Okay, so it's a Jethro Bodine reference, which actually, frankly, Tyler, that we may call you Jethro for a wee bit.
Oh, no.
So anyway, so if you have, to make this easy, if you have a telescope with a focal length of 100 millimeters, and you have an eyepiece that has a 40 on the side of it, that's millimeters, 40 will go into 100, or 100 divided by 40
See,
is
you're doing it wrong.
2.5,
Ken.
right?
You're doing
So-
it wrong. You got to use the new math.
Yeah, I'm
Jose
trying-
has 47 apples.
Just
He
stop,
takes them and
stop,
trades them.
stop,
No, you don't like that
stop,
kind of math? All right,
stop.
all right.
Stop, please. So you've got 100 millimeters. 40 will go into 100 2.5 times. That means that eyepiece with that telescope will give you a magnification 2.5 times what your eyeball looks like, okay? Sees. If you go down to a 20 millimeter eyepiece, 20 will go into 100 5 times. So the 40 went 2.5, the 20 goes 5. If we go down to a 10, 10 will go into 100 10 times. So it went from 2.5 to 5 power to 10 power. If you go down to a 5 millimeter eyepiece, 5 will go into 100 20 times. So it goes from 2.5 magnification to 5 to 10 to 20. It doubles every even step. So when you go to 40 to 20 to 10 to 5, it simply is doubling the previous power. So Paul was exactly right. You want to start with the lowest power, widest field eyepiece, and then work your way up until the sky starts giving you bad scene, and you go back to where the eyepiece looks better. So Tyler is in fact much smarter than Jethro. Noah or Tyler, Amazon. You owe Amazon Menard a meal for next week for saying you're smarter than Jethro Bodine.
Jethro.
So he said a cookie will do fine.
Okay.
So Rosie, thanks for joining. She has to go. Appreciate you giving us a follow. And if anybody else has given us a follow today, I'm sorry I missed it. We're going to go ahead and stop the Amazon live broadcast now. I can't tell you how much fun I've had doing this talking, and the interaction We have
Stupendous.
it's just been fabulous. Somebody had a question just now that popped up and it disappeared. I'm sorry I didn't get to see it. So, Tyler, you got any last words of wisdom? Oh, wise Jethro.
Get out there and shoot some stuff with your camera. Even if it's not a tracking mount, just get out there and start using your equipment. Get familiar with your equipment. And then eventually you'll want to upgrade your equipment and get bigger and better things.
Well, unless you like what you've got. I mean, there's that.
Can't hear you, Paul.
Yeah,
You're
so, okay.
quiet.
Tyler's right. Get out there and start doing it. The first clear night, go start doing astrophotography. If you don't want to do astrophotography, but you're interested in astronomy, get your telescope out there and go do it. If you don't have a telescope, use your binoculars. Get a pair of binoculars for $35. Go out there and start doing some astronomy the next clear night, because the skies out there are waiting. There's some beautiful things to be seen. It doesn't look like the pictures that you see on the webs. They just don't, because like we talked about, those are taken with cameras that see light you don't see, and they build up exposures and your eye doesn't. So get out there and look up and enjoy the heavenly skies that we have above us. So from Paul Newton over in the control center and Noah Menard, the Amazon guy, everybody here at Explore Scientific wants you all to have a great weekend, enjoy amateur astronomy, and have
A wonderful day.
share your hobby with people around you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.